Suzanne. So Suzanne Jensen's going to be assisting me, and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living here in Granada Hills, where we welcome all who practice their beliefs in faith and love. And we start all of our programs here with a little opening ritual, which we call lighting the flames of faith. So let's just take a deep conscious breath and exhale. Allow ourselves to just surrender to this moment, setting aside any busyness, any cares, any worries, any worldly clamors, and just allow ourselves to surrender to this moment as we come together for this service. So we perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples, all faiths, all sentient beings come from the one great universal presence, which we call Spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here this evening. And so we've pre-lit the candles because we have an ofrenda going on these next few weeks. But we light the first candle for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. We light the second candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples, the way of primal spirituality. We light the third candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the fourth candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We light the fifth candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. We light the sixth candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We light the seventh candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. We light the eighth candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. The ninth candle we light for all forms of new thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. And the 10th candle we light for all those who are as yet unaware of the power and presence of Spirit in their lives, and for the space we hold for them here at our center. And as Suzanne lights the healing candle, please put silently into the light the names of anyone you wish to have experience the healing flame of God's eternal love.
And so if you will all join me in consciousness, I give such thanks and gratitude this evening for being here in this sacred space with like-minded persons and loved ones and friends and companions. And I know that we are all led here today by divine appointment, and I'm grateful for all who have shown up to be here in communion with the one Spirit, the one life, the one mind. And I am grateful for all the information and knowledge and wisdom that is being brought to us tonight in our open hearts and our open consciousness, so that we can move forward in our lives in a more perfect way with Spirit and with life and with God and with all of our friends and loved ones. And I release my word to the law, knowing these things that I've already declared are already so, and together we acknowledge this by saying, and so it is.
Thanks, Suzanne. Thank you. So we do have a few more friends who've shown up here, so welcome. My name's Reverend Michael McMorrow. I apologize for my casual dress. I thought I would get home today, but, you know, what you see is what you get. So my Believe Me suit I wear on Sundays. So I'm just going to do some announcements. Just briefly, we do have Sunday services here. We have a lot of activities that kind of align with the things that Joy speaks to in her teaching. We come at it from, not that you don't come at it from a spiritual perspective, but we're a little more open about that side of it, less psychological. But our teaching has been called spiritual psychology. So we teach a thing called religious science here. And if you'd like to know more about that, or if you want to find out what else we have going on here, there's a guest book out in the lobby, and you can sign your name on that. And we have a weekly newsletter that goes out. When Joy is done, you're welcome to look around, poke around, and see what's going on here. And so the other thing I wanted to bring your attention to, if you're in the neighborhood and local, and for our regular members, we are observing the Mexican tradition of Dia de los Muertos, Anglo style, I guess you'd say. And so we are, this is a public ofrenda, so if you have someone that, or someone either two-legged or four-legged who you would like to honor, who's passed in the, not even the, grief's an interesting thing, it's not even this past year, then you're welcome to do so. I just ask that you put your name on the back with a phone number or an email so we can get it back to you, because I often end up with a small box of mementos and I don't know who they belong to. So, so anyway, if you don't know anything about that, this tradition, go on Google and look up Ofrenda and check it out. It's really a sweet memory. And so in the homes of Latin families, there'll be, mementos of the deceased. So it might be tequila, cigarettes. Like my grandmother was very fond of Cools. And if I knew someone, I'd bum one if I knew someone who smoked them, but I'm not going to spend $5 or $6 on a pack of cigarettes. Yeah. Anyway, but so yeah, my grandmother's up there, so I would put like a couple Cools there and playing cards because she loved canasta. Yeah. So you get the idea. So avail yourself of that, and then next Wednesday night, we're having a Samhain service, which is a Celtic observation. The ofrenda will be up, so will still be up, so it'll be kind of a mix of the Irish and the Latin cultures together. So, so there you go, Aaron Gobra. Yeah. So now, let me get to introducing the reason why you came here tonight. So I'm very pleased to invite Joy Andrielli. I met her through my beloved Stephanie, and I went to some workshops that she mentioned that I endorse. So if you like what you're hearing here and you want to go deeper in a smaller venue, then make sure you get on her email list. So Joy is also, let's see, marriage family therapist, trained educator. And you know what? I'm going to let her do her own intro and just invite you to come up but to thank you for coming here and sharing your gifts of mental and spiritual healing through open communication. So let's give her a round.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Michael, for that. Yeah, what a nice place to be. Thank you all for being here and coming back for the returnees. So yeah, I am a licensed, just so for those of you that don't know, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm also a certified WANT educator, which means I teach, this is just real quick, education, communication strategies, some of which you will learn here tonight. And then finally, I'm a transactional analysis practitioner. And if some of you remember way back when, I'm okay, you're okay, back in the 60s and 70s, Eric Byrne came up with the parent, adult, child, the circles, took the id, ego, and superego and made it into very simple terms. So I also, that is part of what I do as well. But tonight, as the title of my workshop said, it's 3 tools, how to stay spiritually grounded in emotional situations. So for those of you who weren't here last week, I'm going to do, and for those of you that were here, I'm going to do a little bit of a review, and then I'm going to expand a little bit on what we learned last week. It's kind of like if we were making a chili, we put, the meat and the tomato sauce and the chicken stock in last week. And if you're a vegetarian, I thought about that. If you're a vegetarian, we would put beans instead of the meat, and now we're going to put all the vegetables and spices in tonight. So we're going to spice it up. And as we go along, if you have any time in your life where recently, let's say, that in communication you felt intimidated or maybe guiltified, keep that in mind as we go along, because we may want to discuss it a little later, and you can raise your hand at any time. All right? So first off, is any questions from last week or thoughts that anybody had a question about or a comment before we kind of go into the review? Or should I just go right in? Okay, I'm going to go right in. Okay, well first, after there were a few individuals that came up to me. One said, hey, what about a work situation? Can you speak to that? So I will do that tonight. We did a little bit more on personal relationships, but these tools will apply to basically any situation at work, at play, at home, anything. So we'll address that tonight. And also, if something is a little bit more personal and you don't feel like raising your hand and talking about it, you can see me after, or you come to one of my smaller workshops. We could do that. I work one-on-one with people in front of the group, as Reverend Michael said. Or you can also hire me privately. Get me all to yourself for an hour. So that's that. So what I did, okay, I as a trainer we teach people how to make decisions. Well, how to help you find your way to make decisions rationally, not emotionally. Wrote that. Second, clean up some sort of bad language habits, which really come from a lot of fear and low self-esteem, when we just end up reacting, or we're too afraid to say anything, so we hold it in. Could be kind of one or the other, and somewhere in between. And then lastly, teaching people or aiding in how to confront or have conflict, how to confront with integrity. And then I talked a little bit about what respect and cherishing, and I talked a little bit about what that meant in terms of masculine and feminine. But that's another night. We'll maybe touch a little bit on that. So that was the first thing. The second thing was, what did I do next? Defining rational versus emotional, because if you're going to make a decision rationally, not emotionally, what does that mean? Does anybody remember from last week what that means? If you could just say, oh, if I'm making a decision rationally, what does that mean? You make it. You pause before you respond. Okay. Right. That's exactly right. So how to channel an emotion rationally. So, and what did you have a comment? Same thing? So you have the difference between an emotion and a feeling in this system anyway, is emotion is a limbic experience in your body. You feel something. And then by dialysizing it, by running it through your brain, it's like, oh, I'm angry, or oh, I'm disappointed, oh, I'm afraid, whatever it is. So you have that feeling, you think it through, and then weighing your thoughts and your feelings. What do I have that I don't want? What do I want that I don't have? How can I deal with this emotion? And then acting. So it's feel, or emotion, think, and act. Pretty rational, right? We don't always hit the mark on that one, but that's part of being a human being, right? So, but that is the definition of, in this system, what rational means. And by the way, the emotion is pain or pleasure. It's you're really feeling really good, or we're feeling really bad, or somewhere in between, but it's either painful or pleasure. So emotional, on the other hand, is having that emotion, not thinking anything at all, not weighing your thoughts or your feelings, not identifying what it is, and just having a reaction. So it's an emotion, feeling, react, and then think later. So it becomes that, right, so if you laugh to that, you might have had that experience. And I think we all have. I mean, I think, again, that's part of being human. But the idea here is to not, unless you want to, let me put this up here where you can see it. So having an emotion and reacting, we can get in all kinds of trouble. So the reaction is not only having the outburst, like having that outburst, that angry outburst, but it also could be, like I said, not speaking up because you're afraid. And it's usually we're afraid of being abandoned. You know, it usually comes down to we're afraid of being left if we really were to think about it, and I'll think about it through and have the experience of it. So, and again, that's coming from a little low self-esteem. So there's a fear and low self-esteem. So emotions, react, think later. So let's say you overreacted, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that. Should not have. So now it's the critical shoulds of self. I shouldn't have done that. I should have been a better, I should have watched, I shoulding all over myself, or a critical should of somebody else. You know what? He deserved it. He was a jerk, and he deserved everything I said. He should be different. He or she should be different, and he got what was coming to him. So I just wanted to make that point about, one, that the emotional is not just having a visible violent reaction. It's also withholding for some fear, okay? And also the critical shoulds. And then we talked about rumination, which is think, feel, and not making a decision to do anything. That's a good one, right? And that's cortisol producing. Think, feel, without making a decision. So what do? You might want to get outside help, talk to somebody do something. Otherwise, your body is going to probably feel the effects of it. And the other one is impulsivity. That's where you just have an emotion and you're reacting, and emotion, react. Addicts do that. Emote, react, you know, emotion and reacting. That's a whole other way of just not completing even the full emotional loop or rational loop. You're just kind of being bipolar in some way. Okay. So that's kind of a quickie on that. Any questions so far? Okay, then we went to the 3 tools, the stroke and stand, which I made a little simple over here. Stroke, you have every right. We're going to go through this in a little bit more depth in a minute. So this is a stroke and stand. This is something that we use in the moment when something happens to you. When you feel either intimidated or somebody's unrequested rescuing, somebody's giving you an order, it's sort of inappropriate from the person, or you're under criticism in some way, something like that. And I'll get to that list in a minute. So that we did the stroke and stand. I'm going over it real quick. Then we did the validation tool, which was you have every right. You're flushing the nonverbal to a verbal negotiable event, ideally. So the validation tool is you have every right to say that. I sense by your tones, gestures, postures, and facial expressions that you're angry or whatever. Am I right? It's very important to say, am I right? What this does is, if somebody's having a limbic, gamey, passive-aggressive thing where they're not talking, they're just silent, then this is a way to say, instead of saying, are you pouting? You know, it's coming from a critical parent, right? So we want to start to cross these transactions out of being a critical parent or a guiltifying person. You shouldn't be looking so sad after all I've done for you. So this begins to cross the transaction by flushing that nonverbal to a verbal event. Am I right? Then the person says yes or no, and if they don't answer at all and they don't want to answer, just assume the worst. And the response is, okay, I'm going to assume the worst, and then go off about your business until they come back to you. Okay, make sense? No confusion there? Okay, and then the last one was the 5-step cleanup. which is if you've had a conflict or some transaction, and I mean communications with somebody, and you don't feel good after it, and you feel like there's something that needs to be said, this is a way to do it. And what it is essentially is an expanded stroke and stand by first getting the permission. You know what? There's something sensitive I want to discuss with you about the conversation we had this morning or yesterday. When would it be convenient to talk about it? So then you ask permission or get the appointment. Convenient for the masculine, you're asking a masculine energy, doesn't matter about the gender. Or when would it be comfortable to hear me out if you were talking to the feminine energy? And then that might not make sense, but don't worry about it. The point is, get permission before you're going to start to have a sensitive conversation with your mate, your coworker, your boss, or your person that's under you at work, or and I would say even your child at some point. Start to give it some respect to your children and cherishing that way. Okay, so I didn't write down the 5-step cleanup. I will when we get to the examples. Yes, that's it. That's the permission statement. There is something sensitive I want to discuss with you. When would it be convenient or comfortable? Then they say now. Okay, so that's part of the 5-step cleanup. And you come over here. You have every right, or I would want, or I don't want, or I will, or I won't will. Or, I know this is getting confusing, but this is where it's getting nuanced. If you have something sensitive, we're going to do a different example. Okay? We're going to do a different example, and I think it's going to be the work-related example. We're going to get to that in a minute. The point about that is the permission. The thing I didn't mention last week was these are tools that you use on the bad days. Okay? It's not like you have to go around saying every time there's a conflict you're going to remember it, and it's really for the bad days when you feel you don't know what to say, or maybe you need to learn how to regulate your emotions, so you do need to study it a little bit and use it in that way. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is everybody does have a right to, and I think this is important enough to write down. Eric Byrne, who was the originator and creator of transactional analysis, said that everyone has a right, thank you, to, thank you, Michael, be, feel, think, and share in their own way. In their own way. Remember when with the stroke, that's the whole point of, hey, you have every right. Otherwise, you're discounting their very existence. What is a stroke? It's a unit of recognition. It's a unit of recognition, even walking down the street, hi. It's a unit of recognition that tells me I exist. What's the worst in life? Is to completely be ignored. I mean, kids die from it. They don't get touched. They don't get something called marasmus. They just don't. They don't exist. You get diseased and you can die. So even that's why people do resort to sometimes negative strokes, because at least it's a stroke. At least somebody's telling me I exist, even if they're beating me up. So he said we get to be, feel, think, and share in our own way. And I think that was one of the things I wanted to mention. In addition, is that nobody has a right to harm my body, to harm my property, or to sign a legal document that I'm supposed to be signing to commit fraud. So people don't have a right to immoral, unethical, or illegal. They might do it, but there's laws and there's cops and doctors and lawyers to take care of that. So So this whole idea of you have every right, it doesn't just mean you have every right to just, harm me in some way or harm others. But you do have a right to your bad manners, to talking to me in a loud voice, to screaming, you do have a right to be just generally a jerk. Yay! Right? We do, because we've all been one. I mean, I think we've all been...
Or if you've suppressed your jerkiness most of your life and been a good little girl, it's just so freeing to be able to be a jerk.
To be able to be a human being, to feel, think... Right, so when people come to therapy, so as a kid, right, you grow up, and if you've been in a household where, by God, do not share anything, I don't want to hear your thoughts or your feelings. By the way, I don't want to know what you think. And please, I don't care how you feel, and by the way, you shouldn't feel this way or that way. So in other words, don't be you. Right? Exactly. Don't be you is the message, with all of those little messages that seem so harmless. I mean, I feel so passionate about this because because I've lived it, but I just do. So when people get to therapy in their adult life and wondering why am I holding it in, or why am I bursting out? Why am I ruminating? Well, because somehow you were so afraid of being abandoned. It's like, okay, so our parents are our gods when we are born, and it's like if I say who I am, God is going to leave me. They already have told me that it's not good, and I mean, I'm talking in extremes here. But basically, our parents are our gods when we come out, and then that's what we have, is these people that are training us, our demonstrator models, but they aren't. Then we get older and realize no person is a god. There's not one person that I can count on. So yeah, people may leave when we take a risk and start to talk this way and say, hey, I know what I want and I know what I don't want. And the contract is the thing that, then if you can get the contract in, then you're really like at the precipice. Oh my God, I love myself so much that I am risking committing to what I say I value. I'm going to make a commitment around what I'm saying I want and I don't want, which really goes right back to my value system. Which means the person may leave because they don't like whatever it is and so, but what we have intact then is, the only way we know we love ourselves or anyone else is by the agreements we're willing to make and keep. Right? You know that one. The only way we know we love ourselves or anyone else is by the agreements we're willing to make and keep. So if we make an agreement about something, if you've got to renegotiate it, fine. But if you don't keep the agreement that you made, then there's a game being played. You're kicking me or you're kicking yourself. Kicking the relationship. Because the subconscious is an interesting thing. It runs us. We don't think it does, but it does. That's why this is all these kind of classes, and coming to spiritual centers are places to raise our consciousness about God and who we, and psychology and all of that. So anyway, so then we come to therapy and then we start to share because, hey, we're paying for it. Then we start to say what we think, tentatively, if you're the one that, or if you're the other one, I'm going to use this side for the explosive ones, or if the other one, yeah, what you think, and then we get our feedback, and then by God, we get to feel. And emotional people, I didn't think I was going to go this tangent, but we'll get to the other stuff, but emotional people aren't in touch with their feelings. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Because they're dissociated from the feelings, so if they're doing all this reacting or avoiding, they don't have to Be in touch with their feelings and go, what do I want based around how I'm feeling, and what do I not want? It's like I'm just going to react, or...
Do you mean to say that irrational people aren't in touch with their feelings? Because...
I'm using the word emotional for this.
Okay.
Do you have an example?
Emotional, and I think I'm really in touch with my feelings.
Right, I'm an emotional person too. But I'm saying emotional in this context, it's not that it's a bad thing, it's how we channel our emotion. So if I'm an emotional person too, and I work like a dog to sit, meditate, sit with my feelings, try to regulate them, and like I said, dialysize it so I can think, oh,
And not react.
and not react.
So that's what you need to do, not do the react.
Yes, this is right. That's the rational. This is what I don't want. Now, you guys may decide this is fine for you. That reacting emotionally or not speaking up is just fine.
That's very hard on your body.
But it's very hard on your body. So, right. And then we'll move on here. But so the rational, the emotional, what's hard on your body is you're running on shoulds and should nots. And guilt. Criticism and guilt. And can't handle pain. So I better not speak up, because ultimately they'll leave me. I better not speak up because I'm basically too afraid to commit to what I'm thinking to myself I value, or I want, or I don't want, to make it really simple. So is this all making sense? Are you guys riveted, or are you falling asleep? It's riveting to me, so I don't know. But I want to get to the, okay, so rational wants and not wants. What do I want that I don't have? What do I have that I don't want? So my job is to help you get rid of what you don't want and get what you want. At least that's how I hope. But part of it is defining what it is. If you're one of the ones that doesn't even know, because it's been, you couldn't be, I mean, and this takes its toll. It takes its toll, trust me. And prices and prizes. So that's what got me getting this, is you said the price of this is, well, my body's going to suffer. Yeah. And your mind. And sometimes, in codependent relationships, you don't speak up for this reason or that reason. It's like you do it because maybe there's a good reason to do it. You do it because it's for your inheritance, or you do it because it's the right thing to do, and you know it's going to be a limited amount of time. You get the help that you can. So sometimes we make a choice. I know my body's going to suffer for this this week, but I'm willing to do it. So the idea is just to raise the consciousness so you can make a choice. But that would actually be a rational choice if you were, it would actually, you would feel good about yourself, right? This is, you don't even know you're doing it. So the price and the prize, that's why rational is weighing these prices and prizes, and can handle pain. So we can sit with our pain on that side. This one we have to do a lot of reacting or codependent non-reacting to avoid the pain, because it's just too painful. Okay, so any questions? Yeah.
So when you were talking about having, making agreement with yourself as to what's acceptable and what isn't, and then you referenced some people kind of internalize. I found that sometimes, even though I might have a good reason to kind of speak up, it might, kind of like the old saying about, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? I mean, that moment may not be the time to speak up about whatever. Let's say I was spoken to in a harsh way. Let's say by my wife. And, but in the mindset she's in, there's no way I could possibly...
She's too emotional.
Yeah.
So then it's a keto. That was the other thing we talked about, I didn't mention. So then your rational mind goes, you know what? I'm not going to play with this. I don't want to play this game. I don't want to face this.
Then I'll say something cute, you know, and
That's the whole game, right? That would be the hook. So her reaction and froth is now hooking you in, but you're saying, I'm not going to take that con. We call that in game dynamics a con. And so a keto is, well, you just get out of the way, leave the room. You know, you have, hey, I understand you're upset. I mean, whatever it is, you do it there. You basically kiss. And do it their way, and know you're doing it. Yeah, exactly. And then what? The next day, if they're a negotiable human being. So, right, if they're a negotiable human being who's demonstrated that they can be in their adult ego state, if they can be an adult and they're not going to be, you know, if she has a track record of being a rational person and can calm down. Yeah, because we all do get emotional at times. I mean, the best is, I think, we're going to be perfect, we'll be perfect when we're dead, and then it's going to be 3 days after we're dead. We'll be perfectly dead 3 days after we're dead. So, you know what I mean? So it's not, this isn't perfect. This is just more tools to raise your consciousness, to put you on a more loving, affirming track, not only for yourself, but firstly for yourself, but also for other people. You know, to ultimately create a more harmonious world and create a sort of a nice energy in the world. Yeah. So, okay, so...
So you don't have a tweet stand?
No, I don't. I don't even have Facebook or any of that. Okay, so review and expand on the 3 tools. Stroke and stand. I think I've kind of gone over this, but basically this stroke, but I think it's worth driving home because the discussion around it is good. What does the stroke say? It says, you have every right. The alternative is, you know, I really appreciate that you, or I understand that you, something to affirm their right to exist, and their point of view is just fine. When I first started doing this, you had every right. I couldn't even get the words out because it just sounded too weird to me. So we settled on, you know, I really appreciate that you, and that kind of just felt better to me. But now, so you choose. But this is a good one. But basically the message is, you're okay. You are okay. And I'm okay, you're okay. We get into problems when we're like, I'm okay and you're not okay. Or I'm not okay and you're okay. You know, or I'm not okay and you're not okay. Those are like demon people. So I think that was funny, but so that's what that's saying. You're okay. The stand. Okay, I love this because I want or I don't want. Again, I want. Why? Because I'm me. Because now I know that I can be, feel, think, and share in my own way, and I get to have my own wants and not wants. If you're of the ilk that has been trained out of your wants and not wants, practicing the tools will pretty quickly flush your wants and not wants to the surface, right? So that's another benefit of these tools. If you have a problem even knowing, then now you have permission to use a tool that's going to address what it is that you want and what it is you don't want. It will force you to think about it. I had a hard time with that for a long time. I don't know what I want. Because my thing was, well, what do you want? And then I'll figure out how to give you what you want. That I know how to, I want what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, right. So those of you that identify, or the other ones of like, I know exactly what I want and I don't care what you want. So we're not, so there's the other type that knows exactly what they want and don't want, and they don't really want to negotiate with what you want and don't want. It's just too much of a hassle and annoying and a lot of other things. Gets in their way. So that's narcissism, basically. Did you have a question?
No, you cleared it up.
Okay. So that's the stand. Last week I said the stroke might be the hardest thing. I think the contract might be the hardest for the reason I just mentioned before about, you know, if I'm willing to now go in for what I will and I will not either put up with or what I will and will not do, now I am really, really making a stand for my own values. And that means I'm pretty much in integrity here. The other way, if we just make the stand, well, I don't want, now hopefully somebody can mind read what we want, or can fill in the blank after we've told them what we want. They will fulfill it. But we got to get this last one in. Now there are variations to this, but this is a very simple way to do it. You can also add in the feeling statement here. You have every right to say that, think that, feel that, do that, however I feel this or that. Yes?
How does the contract, how do you get to what does the contract look like? I know I can understand saying you have every right. If I think about it, I can figure out what I want or what I don't want. But then contract, do I have to talk to you about it, or I just say, I'm getting the hell out of here if you ever do that again, or...
Well, no, that's actually a good question, right? Can I make this decision now all on my own without getting outside help or counsel to see if I'm like blowing up my relationship? Is that what you mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, do I do that unilaterally, or do I negotiate a contract with you? What happens?
Okay, well, let's say somebody's repeatedly has been late. And it's a game. Because what are games? Games are repeated behaviors. They're repetitive. And they usually end up in pain. Repetitive transactions that happen over time that end up in pain. It's not like a one-time event that this person is late, or even twice. It happens a lot. And I've been going, oh my God, I'm waiting again? He said he was going to be here at 8, and it's 9 o'clock. So, shows up. You know, you have every right to be late. However, I don't want this experience anymore. It's actually pretty painful. So next time we make a date, I will assume that after 10 minutes or so, after 8, that you won't be coming, so I will be making my own plans, or I will leave. So that's what I mean, is making an agreement either with the other person. I mean, if you said it at the end of this, and what do you think about that, sir? He'll say, well, you don't have to, you know, there could be a chance for even more of a game. So making the contract is, I will, or you could say, you know what, this has happened, this has happened the first time, you have every right to be late, and it's the 4th time you've done it. Don't feel good about it. I don't want the experience. Will you call me next time? Let's say if you haven't spoken up to even ask for that on the 5th time. Does that make sense?
I find that I get a lot more results when I approach a person from a more. I get more results when I approach a person from a more kind of a benevolent, kind way. But you know, I mean, I could say, look, you have every right to do it. But if the tone I mean, there's a kind of a shift an emotional shift, I think, that when I can do it, I get a lot more results out of it. It's kind of how you say it, rather, the emotion.
I mean, if your nonverbal is more,
yeah,
is more
people pick up on the
neutral
vibe.
or supportive rather than
Angry. Yeah, because people pick up on the vibe. So I
They
could
totally
say
do. It's 90% is nonverbal. Well, absolutely. That said, my thought is if you can just get the words out, even if you feel angry, it's okay too, because now we're getting into the practice of it. But yes, I agree that if we can get to a place of not having these conversations when we're really still charged up, it's much better. Right, when we approach it with a more loving, receptive, you're okay, I'm okay kind of spirit.
Don't use any derogatory adjectives in between. You have every liking right to.
Or again, you're commenting, you're not calling somebody a jerk, you're saying you have every right to, and then be specific what they did. Like I mentioned my friend last week, you have every right to, she was late every time, and I just put up with it. And then finally I said, you know what, you have every right to be late this time. However, I feel really uncomfortable sitting here waiting for you. So in the future, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume after 10 minutes you aren't coming, or what I might do is just allow myself 20 minutes to be a little bit late. And she blew up. It was the end of our relationship. There were other things, but she blew up, and then she got game. It was and I was just trying to negotiate a deal with her. I have a kid, it was like, well, okay. Microphone.
Oh. Okay. When you call somebody on their game, like the being late or whatever, that's exactly what I was thinking of. The response may be less than what you expect or what you were hoping for.
Emotional, in other words.
Yeah, in other words, the person may just go, as you said, ballistic because you called them on their game.
You called them on your game. And it's not only calling them on their game, it's calling yourself on your own game of putting up with it. So it's now I'm saying, hey, you have a right to be you, and there are consequences. There's natural consequences or logical consequences, and this happens to be a consequence of, yeah, that's exactly right. You called them on their game, and you're making a vote for yourself and your own worthiness.
So you may never actually get to make a contract with them because they aren't willing. They've decided to exit the scene.
Right, they may decide to exit the scene, and sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, if they have a response that's unsavory in some way, you go another round. You have every right to be upset. I completely understand, and I still don't want the experience. I will still do what I said I'm going to do, and I love you. You can button it up with a love sandwich. You can just say, you can kind of give them this and then give them the love at the end and make it a complete sandwich, and then, and 2 rounds, that's it. 2 rounds and you're out of there. You know what? You have every right to want to do this the 3rd time around. I don't feel comfortable doing this, so I'm going to go in the other room. I'm going to leave. I'm going to do whatever, and when you want to talk about this in a more rational way, I'm available for that.
So for the stand, word want is better than say prefer. I mean, prefer is to soften.
Prefer is to leave it an opening for another preference. Yeah, it's an option. It feels more optional.
A bit kinder, but doesn't hit home.
It doesn't hit home.
Okay. Thank you.
To say I want, people want to say I would like. I would like is fantasy. I would like is fantasy. When I use the word, I've been trained now in my mind that, it was always, would you, I'd like to buy a car, he would like to buy the car, he wants to buy the car. Who's going to buy the car? He wants to buy it, Or he would like? The want, right. So it has a little bit more potency that it carries with energy, that it carries with it. So now when I say I would like, I'm really thinking in my wildest fantasy, or I would really, I reserve that for fantasy. And when I want, it's really something that I want.
So when you set the limit and you end up with a love sandwich, aren't you sending a mixed message to that person and almost encouraging another game to come on?
How would that be?
Well, if I understand you have every right to be late, however, if you're going to be late, if you're going to be late, it makes me feel bad, and I'm just going to leave after 10 minutes, but I still love you. Isn't that a mixed message?
Well, you kind of varied it a little bit, and that's okay. But why not? And what is wrong with having somebody have their right to be and loving them? I mean, yeah, I don't have to like their behavior to love somebody. I don't have to like what they're doing, and they don't have to like me. So I would say no to your answer. That's not encouraging another game. The only way that we would encourage another game is if we got in there and we continued to argue with it, argue the point. Or be somehow guiltified or intimidated into their way of thinking about this or that. Or we're trying to impose, we didn't use this, and now we're trying to impose our intimidating tactics on them. That's not being a negotiable adult.
It's also very disarming to say to somebody, you're being you, and that's okay. I'm uncomfortable with it. I'm not going to withhold my love because you're being you. It allows the person to be them. It leaves some space. And I'm not making my love conditional on your behavior. That if I make my love conditional on how you behave, that becomes a codependent. It's intimidating. It's abandoning. I'm going to abandon you if you
don't do it my
time.
way.
Yeah.
It's kind of like do it my way or else.
Yeah.
That's critical parent.
Yeah.
Or I've done, after all I do for you, you should do it my way. That's the guiltifying. And just so you know the terminology, I say guiltifying, but we call it seducing with guilt. We get seduced into feeling guilty for having a want and being ourselves, right? I mean, who hasn't felt that? Who hasn't? Not one hand. So thank you for that. Question back.
Just to add a statement to kind of tie all that up that we were just talking about. My dad used to always tell me, I love you, I don't like what you're doing right now.
Oh.
And that kind of wraps up everything that we were just discussing.
Nice. Wow, you lucked out.
Yeah, I feel gypped. My dad said, I'm going to put the map of Ireland on your arse, boy.
What a nice thing. What an evolved thing, and what a rational way to say that. They're making a distinction. That's wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to get to the 5-step cleanup. Validation we did, avoiding the one up, one down. We roll it to negotiation with the stroke and stand. 5-step cleanup, it's a little bit different. So I think what I'm going to do is take this, and I'm going to do this. I told you I was going to do this in the beginning, but I didn't. Yes, I know, I love the whiteboards. I don't like PowerPoint. Oh, so I wrote this down. So yes, the stroke and stand, it's when you're under any kind of criticism, inappropriate orders, unwanted suggestions. When people start suggesting you do this or that, it's like, I didn't ask you for it. Non-requested rescuing. Let me help you. No favor goes unpunished. You know, we don't do charity for people that can do for themselves. Unless we want to control them.
So let me begin to say, if I were you,
Yeah, that's a
I hate that one. I'm not you.
well, right off the bat, right off the bat, it puts you on the defensive.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're not. You don't. Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows the trouble.
Nobody knows the trouble. Right. So if I were you, the ideal way is, I have a thought about what you should do about. I have a thought about what you should do. Like now somebody's gonna lay a should on you, but I have a thought about this or that, and maybe what you should do. Do you want to hear it? Now that's okay. That's okay. That's sanctioned. That's now you're asking permission, and you're not going to just, bomb somebody with your wonderful ideas about how they should live their life because you're not looking at your own. Right? Focus on you. What was I going to do? The 5-step. Okay, so the permission or the appointment is the first part. Can everybody see, or should I move this around? The permission. Now, and we wrote that up there. What I'm doing is when I take a pause, I'm thinking about the work-related situation and how I want to do that. But I'm going to lead into it with this. We'll have time. There's something sensitive I wanted to talk to you about. When would it be convenient? So that's the permission step, the appointment. Appointment, and then we go right into the stroke and stand. The stroke. You have a feeling statement. You may or you may want to use this, but it can be good because it kind of, depending in the work situation, you may not want to show a vulnerability if you're the boss or something, So just careful with that one. Stroke. The other thing about the feeling statement, if you're adding it to the stroke and stand, is if you don't know what you feel, just like if you didn't know what you wanted or didn't want, if you don't know what you feel, it's now saying, hey, think about what you're feeling. Think about what you want and don't want, because that's what we do. We have feelings about things, and then we go, what do I want, what do I not want, based on how I feel. Everybody has that right. Kids, that's what we try to teach kids to do, So it teaches also that to identify your feelings. It teaches you to have the dialyzed emotion by putting that in there. So, stroke, feeling, stand, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and contract. So again, it's basically an expanded stroke and stand, which for the purposes is when you're cleaning up something, some sort of conflict you want to clean up or something like that in the past. And best to get these things handled and not go to sleep with them. Yeah, that's what we're going to do now. Well, let's just really quickly. Let's say it is a work-related situation, and it won't be yours, but it'll be a different one. There's something. Let's say the person's been late at a company, always late. I knew somebody who was always late. That's a good example, it seems like. And I'm the boss, and it's the person that's always late. Hey, so-and-so, when would it be convenient in your work schedule to come into my office? I wanted to talk to you about a work-related thing, some behavior at your work. So you put the permission, you say the topic. You have every right to be late. I wouldn't use a feeling statement. You have every right to be late. I want you to be on time. Stand. I will report you to my boss if you continue to be late. Whatever it is, whatever the thing is, And we have a real example, although I might have to modify it a little bit. So over in the corner, what's your name again? Judy. Judy may have an example she's wants to. Okay, so give us the scenario.
Okay, well, first of all, I was brought up in a home where I was not allowed to be me. So it took me a long time to learn how to express myself, to the point where I finally realized I could tell the truth, that nowadays I kind of have to be careful because I want to tell the truth all the time.
Okay.
So I was a little concerned at how it could be related to a situation at work where I have a boss who is used to my telling him the truth. He depends on me to let him know what's going on in the office, and we have really good conversations about that. But at the moment, for the last couple of years, his son is now working in the office. And so now I have a boss who also has his own son there. And when I started feeling there were issues with that, I worried how to approach him. Is he going to have his father hat on, or is he going to have his boss hat on? So for me, the first time I felt that I really had to go to him, I just flat said, I'm not sure how to approach this. I'm really uncomfortable about something. How do you feel if we talk about your son, John? And he said, yes, I'd like to know. So I was able to explain to him how I felt things weren't being done, because John kind of works under me. I trained him for certain things in the office. And I was seeing a neglect build up more and more of certain important things not being taken care of. So we had a good conversation, and I felt better about it. And he said he was going to talk to him about it. And I even gave him a list of some things that hadn't been taken care of. So he had some concrete information. And then a week went by, and I didn't really see much improvement. I was kind of watching to see if he'd start getting caught up on certain things, and I didn't see it. And then last week, after your class last Wednesday, I went to him Thursday night after work, and I said, do you have time to talk? And I said, how do you feel about my bringing up this subject again about so-and-so? And he said, I'm fine with it. And so that gave me permission to then say, have you had a chance to talk with him? Because I thought at first, gee, should I just blurt out, I don't see anything being done. So instead I said, have you had a chance to converse with him or talk with him? Because I am still concerned. And he said he had talked with him. He said, I think we're going to have to be pushing him because he's not as motivated as I'm like him to be. And I flat out said to him, Are you uncomfortable my bringing this up more than once? Do you want me to continue keeping an eye on this? And he said, yes, I do want the truth, and I'm happy you're bringing it to me. So that gave me a huge relief.
Okay. So really, congratulations. Good for speaking up. I mean, you shared your feelings with him, which is, not always appropriate at work, but sometimes it is. You have a relationship with the boss that sounds like it's a good one. Mm-hmm. So I don't know exactly how this applies, but what I thought about over the week, because you told me a little bit about it. First, the comment about how you handled it. Good. And I have a thought about how you could tweak it. Do you want to hear it? Okay. The thought is you were, I figured now's a good time. So I'm sort of assuming that, but I want to give the demonstration of that. So you use the word feel a lot. How do you feel about discussing it? I feel this, I feel that. That's okay, but remember that you might want to think about using the word think. Do you think this or do you think that at work in particular? Because feelings we can get all, when you're at work, it's sort of, the words are very important. That's what I'm listening for. I don't remember exactly what you said, but that would be my one thought about as you went through this. The other thing is, you weren't having a conflict with the boss. It was with the son. And so so what I thought about over this week was if you have a conflict at work with someone else and you're going to your supervisor or you're going to somebody in the company that can do something that can help you with your conflict because you don't have the right maybe, and this was a perfect case, the son, it would be, setting the appointment, which you did. That sounded like it was helpful for you, just that alone. Right? I mean, what was it that was helpful for you that got you to do that? Was it something that... Okay, getting another, right, because you were in this rumination cycle about it. It sounded like that last week, and you were ruminating. You didn't feel comfortable with it. So permission, you got that. So instead of the stroke, it would be, now I'm going to give him some data about his son. It's come to my attention, again, that your son is not fulfilling his duties. You could say, well, and I'm feeling a little uncomfortable telling you one more time, which you said. You just kind of mixed it up a bit. I want to know what you want me to do about it. You said that. So you did that part, right? And he said, yes, I want you to keep an eye on it. So that puts you in this sort of awkward position, I would think. But, yeah, like who is his direct manager? Who's the direct manager of the son?
What I forgot to mention, was that I had tried to communicate with the son first, but he was starting to lie to me about what he wasn't doing.
Okay, so
and that's when
and then you told
the boss.
You told the boss
Right.
that he was lying to you about what he was. So now, okay, so you made a stand, and then what is the contract for the future? Like, what is the thing that you nailed down that now, so you can feel comfortable going forward, so you don't have to come in and like have the whole rumination thing again? Do you know?
Well, we came up with a couple of systems where I can help track what work I'm giving him, rather than just trusting him and letting it go.
Okay.
We came up with a couple of easy ways without wasting a lot of my time, and how I can kind of keep an eye on what he's doing.
Okay, so you came up with that with the boss?
With him, exactly.
Okay,
right.
With the boss, and
Right.
then, so he knows that you have this system, and you guys are going to track it
Right.
together?
Yes.
And then he'll deal with the son. Sounds good to me. Sounds like you negotiated a good deal. So that's part of this, is if we're having feelings, we want some structure. I mean, some structure and some boundaries around whatever the thing is. So let's give her a round. That was great. That's really, really good. Yes.
The problem that I see is the problem with the relationship that could be between the father and the son.
Yeah, but that's none of her business.
Except, it's none of her business, but it could impact the whole outcome of this.
But it doesn't really matter because it's she has a relationship with the boss. It's like they've worked out their system to keep the son in line.
So is there a possibility that she could say, well then, if this doesn't work out, I do not want the son on my team anymore?
I wouldn't project that and add negativity into something that sounds like it's a good solution. But that said, if the son does, she gets to go back in again and say, you know what, we had this, can I get the appointment? I have some more data for you, right? You don't have to do the stroke because you're not having a problem with him. I have more data. Again, I'm feeling a little anxious, and I want to know again what to do. And then you could say, what do you think, rather than I will or I won't. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? That would be another option. What do you think what do you want me to do? And that's what you said to him, and you put him in a place, the boss, of being able to say what he wants, because it's his company. It's not what you want, unless you want a weekend off or something like that. So I think I had more to go. So it's 5 after 8. Do you want me to go to 8:15? Okay. So do you feel complete? Okay. Does anybody else have a want to share anything that's either personal or work related or home related that might apply here, that you might want help with? If not, that's okay.
seemed like we went over the 4 things that start with criticism, inappropriate orders, unwanted suggestions, and let's see what the 4th one was. Rescuing without wanting to be rescued.
Good memory.
Yeah.
So do you want me to go over them?
Well, I mean, is that all you? Is that what do you do?
What is this?
Deal
Like, why is
to
this
deal
just
with
flying
that?
here?
Yeah.
Right? So, right, this is just out of the blue.
It's real.
What this is if I were to say, what's the reason for the stroke and stand? Or when you feel that somebody's criticizing you, is that something you want or don't want? Do you want in somebody giving you an inappropriate order, somebody's telling you what to do and they...
Oh, those are the reasons that you do the stroke and stand.
Yes, these are some of them. These are the big ones.
Thank you.
Oh, that's all you wanted. Okay. I thought I would just give...
Those are big.
Because these are huge.
Huge.
They're huge,
Yeah.
and I kind of glossed over them, but...
Oh, that's okay. That's
yeah.
a good explanation. That's
Unwanted
fine.
suggestions and non-requested rescuing.
Yeah.
I do that, right? Okay, so that's that. You're very welcome. And then the last, God, I feel like there's no feeling like. There is no feeling like. I think that, thank you, I've given you a lot of information, but I want to give you one thing more, so you can really leave here. Yeah, so you really, really can take this home with you. So this is almost a lesson in itself, but there was a person named Tabby Kaler who called this loser communication. I don't like that. I think it's just sometimes we don't know how to. We haven't seen the light. We don't know how to communicate, and that's what I think I've been striving to do my whole life. I think this is why I'm doing this. The reason why. So, what he called as, I'm going to say, gamey communication or emotional. He named condescending, that's one up, one down. Usually there's a critical parent involved in a lowly me, or if you're no victims, we're volunteers, right? So if you know you're feeling one down, that's part of your game. So condescending, abrupt, do it. Now, few words. I'm going to use few words because nobody can hold me accountable. That's like another piece to it, but very abrupt, secretive, mind reading. If, that's when you expect somebody to know exactly what you want, but you don't want to tell them. We want, if you really loved me after all this time. But the funny thing is we change over time, and what really tweaked our beak 10 years ago is not tweaking it. Or even a minute ago, right? Or even a minute ago, right? So secretive, that is really hoping somebody's going to be my mommy and daddy and give me that feeling that I really wanted when I was, an infant. Condescending, abrupt, secretive, or evasive. Eee. Now, I'm really not going to I am not going to commit to a time.
Where was vague? Would that be?
That would be vague, yeah. I'll marry you someday. Or I'll, we're going to go sometime. Well, for sure we'll do it. I remember this one girl, she would say, can we have lunch? And I didn't want to commit to it. And I consciously said, okay. And then she would try to, when? And I was evasive, but now I can say, I don't have the time. It's really hard, but I do it. I don't have time in my schedule. I like with my family and I just, you know. So, right, so evasive, and that's, these are all pretty gamey. When you can't pin people down, let me see what I wrote. Yeah, I will not negotiate the details concerning time, location, so you cannot catch me in a broken agreement, because I never make them. I cannot commit because I want to do what I want when I want. Hey, and that's fine. Why not just say, you know what, I don't know if I'll be able to commit to that. I prefer that so much when you say that to me rather than the other of, oh, yeah, maybe we'll do it. I won't be able to commit to that. I am much better with that because then I know. Then I can deal with reality rather than hoping and then being disappointed. Hoping and being disappointed. You mind read my thought, feelings. I will not ask for what I want and don't want. Okay, so I think that puts us towards the end, unless there's any other questions. The last takeaway. Yeah. What do you do with these people? You avoid them. You avoid them. And you might want to try the validation to flush any kind of nonverbal to a verbal event where you can negotiate something with the stroke and stent. Well, I sense by the tone of your voice that, or you could say, you know, you have every right to discount me. I don't know what, you'd have to give me right now I can't think of that. But I want to, really bad. I'm sensing by the tone of your voice, you think I'm something. You think that I don't know, you might want to be really careful with that. You know, I sense by the tone. I mean, and again, we only fight or fight with people or really flush with people like this that you want to build with. You know, if they're just somebody on the street, you don't necessarily want to. If you don't want to if you're not building with somebody, then why? Good friend.
What about the one up, one down way? You know, I'm sensing from the way you're talking to me that you consider yourself maybe one up from me, and I'm down here or something like that. So get that out of here.
We can't hear you on this.
Oh, yeah.
I have a better idea. How about, I'm sensing from your tone that I may be lacking something.
Yeah.
Or you think I may be lacking.
Yeah.
You think I might not.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
That you think that I may not know how to, how to put the dishes away. Am I right?
Absolutely, you don't.
Okay. Well, you have every right to think that. You have every right to think that. And you know what? I feel completely comfortable with you doing the dishes and putting them away. So will you do it?
Hey, so don't mess with them.
So that's, okay, thank you so much. That was a great example. That was a really, really good one. Because this could be a whole class in itself. But I wanted to give you a little added value. And then just know as you guys leave that there's, we can intimidate with fear. 3 ways to communicate and negotiate. 3 ways. Intimidate with fear. Seduce with guilt. So intimidate with fear is critical parent. Seduce with guilt, super parent, guiltifying parent. Or negotiate with love. Yeah. So this is negotiating with love. I love me. I love you and you're right to be you. And I don't always like what you do. But let's make a deal. Because we want to be in a loving world together. So that is the presentation for tonight. Thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to teach this stuff.
So in case you haven't been here before, there's a saying in ministry, wherever 2 or more are gathered, pass the basket. So So we're going to do that to support, well, our center for one, but to support Joy in her presentation here this evening. And so it is a love offering. You do not have to feel obligated, but if you could grab a couple baskets back there, somebody. Thank you. And we'll just pass them around. And let's give Joy another hand while we're doing that. So I was thinking about how in popular culture you hear all the time, oh, you have to love yourself. You have to love yourself first before you can love anyone else, right? But it's kind of surface, kind of one of those, like a euphemism now. But I was thinking when you were doing the, particularly the stand component, if you don't really love yourself, you can't really do that. Right? So you're really demonstrating the fact that you're demonstrating your healed consciousness, I would say, and that you have a healthy self-regard. So anyway, I thought that was really great. Thanks. All right, so make sure you get on Joy's sign-up sheet for her email list. The other thing that I was going to say for her other, in her smaller venue, then she's able to do, people actually come and work on stuff. And so she'll set up a dyad, and then we can observe, because their stuff's usually our stuff anyway, right? And so people will step up, and Joy will actually coach on how to use the tools in a conversation around something that someone's willing to share. So so I'm giving you a shout out, because I've gotten a lot of benefit. I know Stephanie and I have gone to a few of these things, and I just sit there. I hope she didn't call on us. I hope she didn't call on us, but always you'll get something out of it, and so. Make sure you avail yourself of that. All right, so I'm going to call Suzanne up. We're going to do a closing spiritual mind treatment, which is something we do in this tradition, or an affirmative prayer, and pray us out. And thank you for being here, and stay tuned. We'll see if we can do some more of these things going forward.
Oh, so yes, I know that we are all so grateful for all this wisdom and knowledge that we've received here tonight, that we are open and happy with what we've learned, and that we go home refreshed with all this good way of being in the world with our partners and our friends and our loved ones, and that we arrive home safely, sleep well, and awaken tomorrow refreshed and ready to live our day and our life. And I release my word of the law, and together we say, and so it is.